Good morning. Welcome to sunny Las Vegas. This is Mark Galvin. You are watching How's Your ePresence, and I am at an event in Las Vegas. So we're doing this from a little bit of from a remote spot. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that my internet holds up. You guys, we all know how that goes when you're on the road, but this is How's Your ePresence. I'm your host, Mark Galvin. This show is produced and brought to you by ePresence Social Media Solved. We are a full-service social media agency. Today's show is our partnership show. This is the show that we do with SPIRE, and you can find SPIRE at SPIRE-ATL.com, SPIRE-ATL.com. SPIRE is a group of elite business professionals who's bettering themselves, their business, and their communities. SPIRE is an acronym. It stands for service, proximity, intention, reciprocity, and excellence. The goal here is to bring in really outstanding business people who are like-minded, trying to achieve something that's a little more than just something about themselves. On today's show, we are going to meet tonight's SPIRE speaker. So you'll want to stay tuned to this and then come tonight and you can meet our guest live and in person. If you're new to this broadcast, How's Your ePresence? Welcome. We are glad you're here. Our show's topic run the gamut of business and its intersection with marketing. So what we do here is we try to help business people do something a little more unique that has to do with marketing, that has to do with trying to find new ways to have to find some ROI that they haven't discovered before. We do lots of shows. We're creating lots of information that we're trying to create a library. That's what it really comes down to. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see that we've answered a lot of questions in the past, like how to build a great email list or how to use landing pages. It's always an important thing to do if you're marketing. When you send somebody your website, how do you make sure that they end up with the right content, the information that they really want? Our shows are always live. We run them either Tuesdays at 10 or on Thursdays at 3. Today's a little bit of an outlier because we are interviewing the guests with SPIRE. But join us. Follow us on all of those great social media channels, either Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. If you follow us on those channels, you're going to get notified when we go live. And that way you can tune in and ask a question of our guest. Good. So today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how our guest, the speaker, is a poet and a motivational speaker. We're going to talk about his biggest challenges with social media and how to uniquely communicate a message on social. And maybe, if we have a little time, we'll even get a poem today because he's a poet. Just a reminder, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. It's either, there we go, there's the button. Hit that subscribe button so you know when we go live and you can personally interact with our guests. All right, let me tell you about our guest today. Our guest is John Dillworth. He is with Motivation for the Masses. He's the author of 2 volumes called Motivation for the Masses, a Poetic Autobiography, and a collection of collections, Black American Poetry. He is a keynote and a motivational speaker and poet. John was born in East Point, Georgia, and attended Clayton State University. I went down to Clayton State a little while ago. They have a great theatrical department and a great theater. I went down there and caught a show there once or twice. Very talented people. He worked for the Department of Defense. Isn't that interesting? Did some work in Iraq and Qatar. He has a career in information technology and has served as an engineer and subject matter expert in the discipline of Microsoft infrastructure systems. This guy is absolutely well-versed in many areas. Can't wait to meet him here. He believes a God-purposed life will motivate people to learn from their mistakes. He appreciates blessings. He wants to think optimistically and use what he's been blessed with and blessing others, and he wants to share all of that with us. So stick around, and you'll be able to see more on John because we'll bring him on in just a moment. So if you're watching live, send us questions. We'd be happy to throw them right to our guest. So if you have a question for John, you can ask us, and we will throw it right on the screen, give you some credit for it, and let John answer that. Well, I think that's all I've got for the pre-show, so I think it's a good time to meet John. Let's see if we can find John out there. John, good morning.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you.
Glad you are here. My gosh, you have done a ton of things, from motivational speaking to being a poet to working for the Department of Defense. How much time were you over in the Middle East, in Qatar and Iran?
About 3 years. I spent 3 years in that part of my
That's a long time.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Did you really? Tell me something about it that you found was the most. I mean, it's a unique space in general compared to what we're used to here in the U.S. What was one of the more unique things you experienced when you were out there?
Well, of course, the danger is unique. The wildlife was unique. I got a chance to come across hedgehogs and Komodo dragons and all kind of crazy stuff from the wilderness. But I think the part that was the most pivotal for me was the fact that that's where I really became a man. I was very young and had never really traveled very much outside of Georgia. So for me, it was getting a chance to see a different perspective, a different part of the world, and open up my view of what the world really looks like.
Wow. Yeah, boy, I tell you what, that is certainly a great way to start learning about the world and traveling. That's pretty cool. So you're a poet, and I think that's really interesting with all of the other things that you've done to step into poetry. How did you do that, and why did you do that?
Well, so poetry is really my first love in terms of the different things that I've developed within myself over time. I started writing poetry seriously when I was 16 years old. And so that is
oh, wow, you started early.
Yeah, that's always been a very big part of who I am. And so even as I've ventured off into other endeavors, poetry has never left, or that part of me has always been alive.
That is, I think that's really cool. And especially because you started at such a young age, I think that that's fascinating. How do you take being a poet and weave it into your motivational speaking? Is there a connection there, or are they mutually exclusive?
They are very well connected. I think that the springboard for the motivational speaking is the poetry. And the reason I say that is because that was the original motivation for me. When I was going through tough times in my life, I was able to read back some of the poetry I had written in my younger ages. And what ended up happening was I started getting really motivated by what I read and written. And so when I was able to kind of revive myself, just using the poetry and the motivation within it, that's what really sparked me to want to go further in it and become a voice. And that voice kind of evolved into not only being a poet and being able to recite poetry, but also motivating others intentionally and deliberately with those words.
Oh, I love that. And I really think it's great that you started with the inspiration, right? I think there's a lot, and I'm going to say something, and this is just between you and me. Let's not tell anybody else this. I think that a lot of motivational speakers start being a motivational speaker because it's really about them. You started off with the inspiration and then moved into motivational speaker. And I want to say that's true. That's not true for everybody, but you know what I mean. So that inspiration gave you the wherewithal to step in and want to help others because of that. You know, really, I'd call it almost a groundswell. I think that that's fantastic. So tell me this: did you come to today's show with a poem in your pocket?
Well, I've always got poetry in my pocket because our relationship with the poetry that I write is very, very close and personal. So yeah, it's always with me. Well,
so do you have one you can share with us? It'd be great to get a little snippet or whatever. It's entirely up to you what you think would be great for our audience.
Okay, well, sure. I could share something. I would like to spin off from our conversation, but I feel like we haven't really gotten
Well,
beyond the
hey,
surface yet. So
I like
so
that.
what I
Actually, if you want to wait, we can do that. I'm just, I shouldn't. I'm probably that poor host because I'm ready to get to the meat. I kind of want to hear a poem, but let's talk a little bit. I think that's a good idea. Let's chat a little bit, and then we'll come back to that. That's a good.
okay.
That's what you call a good tease. So since it's a social media show, you're interested, you're willing to talk a little bit about social, and I think that would be good for the cross section of our audiences. So tell me this: what's been your biggest challenge with social media and your presence online?
I think the one of the biggest challenges for me, first of all, it's all a challenge for me because I am not a savvy social media person. Um, and also, I'm kind of a private person when you really think about it. So social media and me, we kind of get along. We found a way to coexist, but I'm learning, the necessity of it, and also it's an amazing way to connect with people from all over the world. But I would say from a
Right,
challenge perspective, one of the biggest challenges for me is, um, for one, separating yourself from everyone else because everybody is just kind of thrown into this big melting pot, right? And
right.
people are really working to stand out in social media. And I've never been the one to seek a lot of attention or want to stand out. So for me, that part of it is the challenge is doing things with the social media present that work to kind of put the pieces together for people in terms of who I am and what I have to offer without
Right.
getting that diluted in the process.
And this is not an uncommon challenge that people have with social. And as a matter of fact, our producer Morgan and I we were bouncing around back and forth about profiles, and this happens all day long. When you work in social media and you see bad examples, we are always talking about those bad examples because we can learn from them. And a couple of things that people do is that there's this tendency to believe that social is exclusive about you, right? Because that's what it's inherently. It makes us want to talk about ourselves, but for you have a first. There is a big bird right there. I'm just going to tell you, if that bird flies this way, I'm going that way. He's huge. Anyway, it's fun doing this outside. But what is interesting is that thinking about who your target audience is makes it easier to know how to communicate with them. And because of what you do, your product is you. And think about that. The product that you're selling is you as a motivational speaker, your poems, and by breathing life into that, it helps grow your brand. So you are one of those people that should be talking about you, but when you do that, how is it that what you have on your mind can help your audience? It is honestly, when I talk to someone who's in a space like where you are, you have a good opportunity to really grow your brand online, and I bet you're doing that. And I think it's interesting. The humility that you're expressing will make you more interesting. So just make sure you constantly express your humility. But I love what you're doing. I think that the way you're looking at social is good and healthy, and I think it'll help you. So,
Thanks.
what is the message that you want to convey on social media?
So on social media, I want to, for one, be as transparent as possible.
Right.
So the social media world has a tendency to be very surface level. So when we interact, when we see people, when we see what people are sharing, a lot of times it's very surface level in nature. And so for me,
Right.
transparency is one of the things that's very key because I believe that the ups and downs I go through in life, the things that are challenges for me, it's important to share those things So one of the main things I like to share from social media is really transparency about who I am and what my struggles are, my victories are. You know, all of it needs to be shared because that's how people really can relate to you. The other thing is purpose. A lot of what I talk about, a lot of what I write about, is pursuing your purpose. And when you go onto my social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or website, whatever you go and interact with, for me, I want you to leave that interaction feeling more confident, feeling better about yourself, feeling more
That's
dedicated to
good.
your purpose. Because I'm not here to take a picture in front of fancy cars or a big mansion and say, look at my life, it's so great. What I'm there to do is to say, let's take a look at your life and how it can be its greatest, how you can reach that potential and pursue that purpose effectively.
All right, so this is what's great about your content and why talking about you is actually talking about me, because sharing vulnerabilities, sharing the things that you've learned from that can help me is actually, I'm sorry to say, it actually is about me. You know, the interesting thing is we all are, regrettably, rather self-centered creatures. And when I'm on social, the only reason I'm consuming it is because it's because there's something I'm interested in. By you sharing the way that I can be better through your own lens of life, I think that that's brilliant, and it'll find people are going to want to hear that. So you've probably seen some success already from sharing that type of content, and continue to do that. I think that it's a smart way to go. If you're watching this show and you're wondering how does this apply to me, we've always got to think of our audience first, and we all have an audience, and that is, John, your message for your audience is fantastic, and I think you're probably doing really well with that. Let's talk a little bit about how you enjoy motivational speaking. What is it that you find giving talks is a motivator for you? What is it that you like about that? And do you have a story where you've shared some content and it's actually come back in some positive way to you?
Yeah. So the line between motivational speaking and spoken word poetry, I tend to blur that line, and I blur it on purpose, right? Because
Okay.
for me, they're both one and the same. So if I'm there to share motivation, then for me, one of the most effective ways to do it is by sharing my poetry, because most of the things that I write are very motivational. And so when I've shared, one of the things that feels the best is when you're interacting with an audience and that connection occurs. And many times, I'm sure you can relate, you'll connect with people in the audience, and then after, the conversations that are had are the type of conversations that help me to know myself better and help the person that I'm speaking with to know themselves better as well. So I'll have
Right.
people come up to me afterwards and say, well, what you talked about in this poem or in this part of your presentation really resonated with me and impacted me in a major way. And I've had people come and be in tears talking about what they experienced as they were listening to some of the words I shared. And that is always, for me, the most rewarding part of sharing. It's not me doing all the talking. It's when I get to listen afterwards and I get to hear what impact the words have had on people. And I've had that happen where people will come to me and say, you know what, I saw you speak, and they may be talking about something from years ago. And,
Right.
and they'll share with me how that helped them. And that part of it is, I would say, the most rewarding and what I look forward to the most.
Have you had some of your audience members stay in touch with you over the years where, it's not just that one time where you see them after a talk, but they're coming back to you again and again and again? Has that ever happened? I'm putting you totally on the
I
spot. We
have
never talked about
usually,
this.
well, one of the things I've seen is that the younger audiences tend to do that more. So if I
Right,
go and
right.
speak to a group of teenage young people, I'll get back to my home and the day is over, and I'll look in my direct messages, my DMs, and I've had young people reach out to me and say, "Man, this particular poem, I read more into the book. It brought me to tears, and this has been good for me." And I'll
Wow.
respond. And as I've done that, there are some of the young people who I've had the pleasure of sharing some of my words with who have remained in contact with me long after our initial interaction.
Wow, that is really cool. You know, the young people today, you could argue that they spend a little too much time on their devices. But there's an example of how they're using their devices to stay connected with someone that otherwise would have been difficult. And to have someone like you influencing young people, that is a really good thing. That's kind of cool. That's a great use of technology. So do you flash your phone number up in the middle of a talk and say, hey, reach out to me? How do they find you to do that after you spend time with them?
I just always share my social media, and I think that's one of the ways that,
Perfect.
it's extremely important, right? You've got to be able to share how people can connect with you and contact you, because a lot of times if your message does resonate with people, it's kind of like having a good drink of water after a workout or something. You're going to want that every time you work out. And so it's one of those things where people connect with you and they feel like they can actually say, okay, well, this person, as we continue to communicate, they know more about me. So every time I drink that glass of water, it becomes more and more fulfilling because they're able to actually share things with me that are directly related to what I'm going through. And that part of it is why I'm willing to say, hey, here's my information. Here's how you contact me. Don't
I
hesitate,
love that.
because I want to be able to keep the dialogue going, and I want to keep the impact going as well.
I think that's I think that's awesome. I think that's terrific. So, all right, we're close to the end. I'd love to ask you to share something. I'm going to come back to that poem. I want to hear a little bit. So, based on what we talked about, give us a little snippet of something that you think would be appropriate.
Pride will put you in a box, secured with locks that others have the keys to. And the only way to let them release you is to surrender that pride, white flagged and peaceful. Humble is the way to avoid becoming your own prey or a prisoner to what you say. Be mindful and in control of what you display, and leave open for interpretation, vulnerable to attack and interrogation, negative exposure and humiliation. Be low, and they can never bring you down or cause you to drown in your own pride.
Oh, fantastic. All right, round of applause. Everybody's applauding. That is awesome. You are, I love how you're connecting this to that component. We all are prideful. And we need to overcome that. I think that's awesome. Did you, total sidebar, are you an America's Got Talent fan by chance?
I am. That's odd because I actually auditioned for America's Got Talent years ago, when I would say maybe the second season, like very early. So this was a long time ago. I auditioned for America's Got Talent, and I performed a poem.
So what were you reading poetry, or what did you do?
I shared some spoken word poetry. So, America's Got Talent's got all the people who do things that are, amazing, right? And so I said, well, what I do is also amazing. I'm going to go and share some poetry. And it was a very interesting experience. I didn't get selected for the show. I think poetry may not be as exciting as some of the things that we see on there. I mean, you've got people doing all kinds of things, but just being amongst the group of people who were auditioning, for hours, that was amazing.
So, John, I have good news for you. It wasn't this season. I think it was last season. A guy, I think, won doing spoken word. I swear, I think it was last season. So go check it. If he didn't win, he went very far. I think he may have actually won it. So go check that out. And the same thing, he was doing a lot, something similar, not the same, because spoken word is, quite frankly, just, it's so variable. There's so many variables to it. But he was terrific. So you ought to go check that out. John, I so appreciate the time spent with us today. And I'm hoping that the viewers are getting a better version of this than me, because my connection is not great. Fingers crossed that it's coming across really well, because the things that you shared are absolutely terrific. And I want to make sure that people are able to see a good version of you versus what I'm getting here through my poor internet connection. Where do you want people to find you? So we talk about you share your social space, but give us where you want people to go, to a website or a social. What's best for you?
Well, the good thing is that I've worked to keep everything very consistent. So John F. Dillworth pretty much is everything. Facebook, Instagram, my website is johnfdillworth.com. So yeah, if you can find John F. Dillworth on just about any platform, you'll find me.
Outstanding. And you know what? And that's something we talk about on social media here at ePresence and social. Having a consistent handle everywhere you go is absolutely brilliant. Well, and for you guys, for the rest of you, SPIRE. John's going to be talking at SPIRE tonight. You can find SPIRE at spire-atl.com. You can also join their Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/SPIRE-ATL. Actually, if you just go to Facebook, look up SPIRE-ATL, you can send a request to join that group, and I do recommend it. John, I'm sorry I'm not going to be there tonight. I'd love to have a chance to meet you. In fact, maybe you and I get on each other's calendar and we get together for a cup of coffee. I'd love to be able to sit down with you face to face. Are you up for that?
Sounds good to me. And just another invite to all of your viewers. If you're in Atlanta and if you're available this evening, come check us out. I'll be sharing lots more poetry and we'll have a great time.
Outstanding. Well, that is absolutely terrific. John, thanks a ton. I'll be in touch. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Mark.
So, folks, this was a great conversation with John Dillworth. I'm absolutely very impressed with him. So glad he was able to join us here today. Hopefully, you'll be able to see him tonight at SPIRE. Thank you for joining us here on How's Your ePresence. We are a company that offers full-service social media management. That includes personal accounts as well as company accounts. We do consulting. We also offer training, as I'm doing for a program here in Las Vegas right now. So feel free to reach out to us. Hit our website. What's that website link that we're sharing, Morgan? ePresence.me. So ePresence.me, because it's all about you. How's Your ePresence is everywhere. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn and as well as YouTube. Well, Facebook, when Facebook is up. Be sure to subscribe. I think it's this side. So hit that subscribe button there and make sure that you get notified when we go live. If you're a podcast listener, we're dropping these shows every single Friday. You can find us everywhere. iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, you name it, we are on that channel. We're dropping content every week, so be sure to subscribe so you get those. Also, hit our website, and you can find all of our shows on our website as well. This show is produced by, there it is, ePresence.me/podcast. Oh, if you go there, you'll be able to find the access to all of our channels. This show is produced by ePresence. Our producer, writer, and social media manager is Morgan Wood. We love the work she does. Until next time, for my SPIRE guest, John Dillworth, I'm Mark Galvin, and this has been How's Your ePresence?